In a small village surrounded by fields and mountains lived a boy named Ion. He was quiet, thin, and often lost in his own world. He didn't talk much. He didn't play with other boys. People called him the Silent One. Ion loved only one thing: watching the big sport on TV. It was a sport full of energy, strength, and loud cheers. It was made for fast, tall, powerful people. Every year, big competitions came on TV. People from cities with strong bodies showed their talent. The crowd clapped. The judges smiled. But Ion just sat in a corner of his house, eyes wide, heart full. He whispered to himself, "One day I will be there." But the world laughed at such dreams. Ion was small. He had no coach, no proper shoes, no support. His father was a farmer. His mother worked in the kitchen all day. Life was simple. No money, no luxury. One evening, he saw a poster in the village. District sports tryouts, open for all. Ion's heart raced. He read it again and again. Maybe this is my chance, he thought. But when he told others, they laughed. "You," said one man. "That sport is not for you." "Stay in your place," said another. "Don't become a joke." Even his friends smiled and said, "Just watch the game on TV, like always." But Ion didn't stop. He made a decision. He would go to the tryouts. The day of the tryouts. It was early morning. The field was full. Big boys with new shoes, shiny water bottles, and colorful uniforms stood in lines. They laughed, stretched, and warmed up. Coaches walked around, giving instructions. Judges sat behind tables with papers and whistles. And then came Ion, wearing old clothes. No shoes, just hope in his eyes. People noticed him. Some laughed. Some looked away. Some said, "Who allowed this child here?" But Ion kept walking, step by step, nervous but not stopping. One judge whispered, "He won't even last 5 minutes." Another said, "Let him try. The crowd needs some fun." The first test. The whistle blew. All boys ran. They jumped, turned, moved like fire. Ion ran too, but he was slow. His feet slipped. His body shook. People in the crowd laughed loudly. Some started clapping, not for support, but to make fun. Ion fell. He tried again, fell again, mud on his face, dust in his eyes. But he stood up, again and again. Even the judges looked confused. "Why is he still trying?" one asked. After 10 minutes, his test was over. He had failed almost every task. The main judge stood up and said in a cold voice, "Thank you. Next." Ion stood there for a moment, breathing hard, looking at the field, listening to the laughter. He slowly turned around and walked back home. He didn't speak a word on the way. He reached home, washed his face, and sat in the dark. His mother came and sat next to him. "You tried," she said gently. "But I failed," he whispered. She smiled softly. "You failed, but not in giving your best. That's not failure. That's courage." Ion looked at her, tears in his eyes. "I want to go back, but they won't let me." His mother said something he would never forget. "They can laugh at your body, but they can't touch your dream, unless you let them." That night, while others slept, Ion stayed awake. He remembered every mistake, every fall. He closed his eyes and imagined doing it right. He had no gym, no coach, but he had something stronger, a reason. He whispered again, but this time louder. "One day I will be there, and they will watch me." And the story was just beginning. The sun rose slowly over the village the next morning, but Ion didn't notice. He was still thinking about yesterday, about the laughs, the falls, the judge's cold eyes. He had dreamed of that field for so long, but the field had not welcomed him. It had pushed him down, hard. His body hurt, but not as much as his heart. Whispers in the village. In the tea shop, people talked. "At least he tried," said one man. "But he looked like a joke," replied another. "Why doesn't he just give up?" a boy added. "He's not made for this sport." Everywhere Ion went, he felt eyes staring, some with pity, some with mockery. He kept his head down. He said nothing. At home, his father stayed silent. He wasn't angry, just disappointed. His mother tried to smile, but Ion could see the worry in her eyes. That night, he sat alone near the fields, staring at the stars. The wind was cold, but his thoughts were colder. "Maybe they're right," he whispered. "Maybe this dream is not for me." The pain of giving up. For the next few days, Ion did not train. He didn't run. He didn't jump. He didn't even watch the sport on TV. He felt empty. His heart was full of questions. Why me? Why this dream? Why did I even try? He remembered the moment he had fallen in front of the crowd. The laughter still echoed in his ears. The judge's voice still haunted him. "Thank you. Next." He thought about stopping. Forever. But deep inside, something refused to die. A stranger's advice. One day, while sitting near the school playground, Ion saw an old man watching the children play. The man had a stick in his hand and a scar on his leg. "Why are you sitting alone?" the old man asked gently. "I tried something big," Ion said, "and I failed." The old man smiled. "Good. That means you're brave." Ion looked up, confused. "But I made a fool of myself." The man shook his head. "I was a runner once. I broke my leg during my first race. People laughed then too. But I didn't stop." Ion's eyes widened. "You ran again?" "Yes," the old man said. "I fell many times, but every time I fell, I learned something. And I rose stronger." He looked at Ion. Falling is not failure. Staying down is. That night, Ion couldn't sleep. His heart was louder than ever before. The mirror moment. Early next morning, Ion stood in front of the mirror. His face looked tired. His hands had cuts. His body was weak. But his eyes were different. He stared at his reflection and said softly, "I failed, but I am not finished." He put on his old clothes, tied a band around his head, and walked out, back to the ground. The same ground that had rejected him now stood in front of him again. Empty, silent. Ion stood on it, alone. No judges, no crowd, no noise, just him and his dream. He started running, slowly at first, then faster. He fell. He stood up. He jumped. He missed. He jumped again. For hours, he kept going. There was no coach to guide him. So he watched videos on his old phone, studied each move, rewound it, watched again. He made his own hurdles out of stones. He drew lines on the ground with chalk. He practiced late at night when others slept. People saw him and laughed again. This boy never learns. But Ion didn't hear them anymore. He had found something louder than their words, his own fire. The promise. One evening, while he rested under a tree, his mother brought him food. "You are training harder than ever," she said. Ion looked at her. "Ma, this time, I will not fall the same way again." She touched his head. "And even if you do," he smiled, "then I will rise faster." She held his hand tightly and whispered, "Then you are already a winner, my son." The letter. Weeks passed. Ion trained every day. Rain or sun, pain or hunger. Nothing stopped him. Then, one morning, a letter came. It was from the city. State-level trials. Final round selection. He had one more chance. His name was on the list. His hands shook. His heart raced. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you for giving me one more fall, so I could learn how to rise." Ion held the letter tightly in his hand. It felt like magic, like someone had finally heard his silent prayer. He was selected for the state-level trials. But this time, things were different. He knew how painful it felt to fail in front of everyone. He knew how it felt when people laughed. So, he made a decision. This time, he would prepare in secret. The village still laughed. People in the village had seen the letter too. Some said, "It must be a mistake." Others joked, "Let him go. We'll get another show to laugh at." Even the boys who trained openly mocked him. He trains alone. He's scared. But Ayan didn't reply. He didn't fight back. He just smiled quietly and disappeared. Training begins in silence. Every morning, before the sun rose, Ayan left his house. He carried an old water bottle, a torn notebook, and a dream that refused to die. He found an empty place, behind the hills, near a quiet river. No one came there. It was wild, silent, and full of space. "This will be my ground," he whispered. He cleaned the area with his hands, removed stones, marked lines with chalk, made hurdles from sticks and bricks. There was no gym, no lights, no one to clap for him. But Ayan had something powerful: purpose. The homemade coach. He took out his old phone. Cracked screen, slow internet. But it was enough. He searched videos of champions in that sport, watched each move again and again, paused, played, repeated. He copied their moves, jumped like them, ran like them, tried their footwork, balanced himself like they did. In his notebook, he wrote, "Day 1, stamina, 20 laps. Day 2, jump practice, 40 tries. Day 3, arm strength, push-ups with stones." He followed it every day. When it rained, he trained in mud. When it was cold, he trained with fire in his breath. When it was dark, he trained by the moonlight. The body begins to change. After 2 weeks, his legs felt stronger. After a month, his hands stopped shaking. After 6 weeks, he could jump, land, and balance better. His body was still small, but it had become sharp, fast, and focused. But the biggest change was inside. He was no longer scared of falling. The day he almost quit again. One evening, while doing high jumps, he slipped badly and twisted his ankle. He fell hard. The pain was sharp. His leg swelled. He screamed. For a moment, he thought, "It's over again. I can't go on." He lay there, tears in his eyes. Then he remembered his mother's words. "They can laugh at your body, but they can't touch your dream, unless you let them." He took a deep breath and crawled home. For 2 days, he rested, but on the 3rd day, he was back on the ground, limping, but training. The mentor appears. One morning, as Ayan was practicing, someone was watching him from behind the trees. It was the same old man from before, the ex-runner with the walking stick. He stepped out and said, "You remind me of myself." Ayan smiled. "I don't have anyone to train me." The old man nodded. "Then I will help." From that day, he came twice a week. He didn't shout. He didn't teach like a coach. He only gave tips, shared stories, corrected Ayan's posture, and told him secrets no video could teach. "Balance is in your mind," he said one day. "Don't jump with fear, jump with belief," he said on another. Slowly, Ayan became better, faster, wiser. Back in the village, still no clue. While all this was happening, the village still thought he had given up. He's hiding because he's scared. He's wasting time. Some even said, he won't even show up for the trial. But Ayan didn't reply. His silence was his strength now. He knew what he was building. He was building a storm, in secret. The mirror test. 2 days before the state trial, Ayan stood in front of the mirror again. His eyes were still the same, soft and kind. But his body was different. His hands had strength. His back had power. His legs had speed. And his heart, It had a storm. He wore his old clothes, tied his same cloth on the forehead, and whispered, "This time, I'm not going to the field to prove others wrong. I'm going to prove myself right." A letter on the wall. Before leaving for the trials, Ion did one more thing. He wrote a small letter and pasted it on his wall. "Dear future me, if you win, stay humble. If you lose, stay brave. Because no one saw your pain, but you turned it into power. And that's what makes you a true player." The train to the city was old and noisy. The window beside Ion was dusty, but he could still see the trees and fields rushing past. This was the farthest he had ever traveled. He held a small bag on his lap. Inside it were his only pair of sports clothes, a water bottle, his notebook of training, and a letter that changed everything. State-level trials. Final selection. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From fire. He had trained for this. Alone. In silence. In pain. Now, it was time. Arrival at the city ground. The sports complex was huge. Bright lights, cameras, coaches, and athletes from all over the state. Tall boys, fast boys, boys with fancy kits, matching shoes, and branded energy drinks. Ion stepped out of the bus, wearing his old shoes and carrying his hopes. People stared. Some smirked. Some looked past him like he didn't exist. He stood at the registration table. The official looked at his clothes, then at the list. "What's your name again?" "Ion," he said quietly. The man checked and said, "You're on the list. Group B trial starts at 10 a.m. Ion nodded. His heart was beating fast. The past returns. While waiting, Ion saw a familiar face, one of the judges from the first trial. The same man who had said, "Thank you, next." The judge looked at Ion, raised an eyebrow, and whispered to another official, "He's back." They laughed softly. Ion heard it, but he didn't care now. He had something he didn't have last time. Preparation. Trial begins. Round 1. Speed and agility. The whistle blew. All players ran across the track. Speed was everything. Ion ran with all his power. His feet hit the ground like thunder. He wasn't the fastest, but he wasn't the slowest either. The judges took notes. He finished strong, breathing heavy, chest rising like a drum. He looked at the board. He had made it to the next round. Round 2, jumping and balance. This was his weakness. The same round where he had failed before. The same round where people had laughed. He closed his eyes for a moment and remembered the secret practice near the river. The stones, the chalk, the voice of the old man saying, "Don't jump with fear, jump with belief." He took a deep breath and ran forward. First jump, clean. Second jump, strong landing. Third jump, slightly off balance, but saved it. The judges looked up from their papers. One of them even said softly, "Much better." He made it through. Again. Break time, the talk of the ground. During the lunch break, players gathered under tents. Some talked about colleges, others about medals. A few boys noticed Ion sitting alone. "Where did you train?" one of them asked. Ion smiled. "Behind a hill, near a river." They laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You're funny, man." But one boy said, "You don't look like a joke out there." Ion simply nodded. He didn't need to explain. His work would speak. Final round, surprise element. The judges introduced the surprise round. It was a test of reaction, strategy, and body control, not just strength. It was new, difficult. Many players struggled. Ion watched carefully. He studied every move. When his turn came, he remembered his training. The video lessons, the long nights. He didn't rush. He moved smart. He controlled his speed. He focused his eyes. He landed safely. People started watching more closely now. One judge leaned forward. Another whispered, Is this the same boy? The announcement. All players stood in a line. Some looked proud. Some looked nervous. Ion stood quietly at the edge. The head coach came forward with a list. He began calling names, those who were selected for the next level. One by one, names were called. Ion's heart beat louder with each second. Then the coach said, "From Group B, Ion Khan." Time stopped. He had made it. The boy who trained in secret, the boy who had once fallen in front of them all, was now standing among the top selected players. Reactions around him. The judge who had once laughed stayed silent. The boys who once mocked looked surprised. Some clapped softly. Others just stared. Ion didn't smile loudly. He didn't jump in joy. He just looked up at the sky and said softly, "I'm not done yet." Back at the village. The news reached the village within a day. The same people who once doubted him now said, "He's our pride. We always knew he had something." But Ion didn't care about that. He returned quietly, placed the certificate in his room, and opened his notebook. There was still one more level to go. A new goal. The final national selection would be harder. Bigger stage. More pressure. But Ion had already passed the biggest test, the test of self-belief. He took his mother's hand and said, "Ma, they didn't give me this chance. I created it." She smiled and replied, "And now, you will create your future." The village was still celebrating Ion's name being called. People who once ignored him now stopped him in the streets. "You've made us proud," they said. But Ion didn't let it enter his heart. He had learned something from his fall. Praise can be as dangerous as insults if you believe it too much. The real fight wasn't over. The national selection camp was only 10 days away. Arrival at the national camp. This camp was not like anything Ion had seen before. It was huge, like a small city. Athletes from across the country were there. Some were tall and muscular. Some had personal trainers. Some had already won medals. Ion stood there, small in size but firm in heart. He had no fancy shoes, no big bag, no coach walking beside him. But he carried something they didn't. Fire built in silence. Day 1. The test of pressure. The first day was about mental pressure. The officials put players through surprise drills. No warnings. No second chances. One by one, players cracked under pressure. Some shouted, some argued, some panicked. When it was Ion's turn, the official shouted, "Start now." Ion ran, jumped, twisted, and reacted without thinking twice. His movements were not perfect, but they were calm and focused. The main coach noted. He doesn't panic. A rival appears. On day 2, a new player arrived late. His name was Kabir. He was tall, well-built, and full of confidence. People said he had already won medals at the national junior level. Kabir watched Ion from a distance. During lunch, he came up to him and said, "So, you're the famous village boy." Ion smiled. Not famous, just focused. Kabir smirked. "Let's see how long that focus lasts." And just like that, a silent rivalry began. The twist, team trials. On day 3, the officials announced something unexpected. This year, the coach said, there will be a team round. The players looked confused. This sport was usually solo. "You will work in pairs," the coach continued, "and your partner will be chosen by us." And fate made its move. Ion was paired with Kabir. 2 opposites, 1 task. Kabir was not happy. He folded his arms and said, "Don't slow me down, small boy." Ion just nodded. The task was difficult. Players had to run, pass equipment, cross hurdles, and finish as a pair. Timing and teamwork were everything. Kabir rushed ahead. Ion followed with control. At the halfway point, Kabir tried to jump early and slipped. Ion stopped, helped him up and said, "Wait for me. Let's go together." Kabir looked shocked. You're helping me. Ayan replied. We're a team. I'm not here to beat you. I'm here to finish the race. They finished strong. They weren't first, but they were noticed. That night, a change in Kabir. After dinner, Kabir came and sat near Ayan in silence. Then he said, Why did you help me? You could have gone ahead. Ayan replied calmly, Because I didn't come here to prove I'm better than you. I came here to prove I'm better than my yesterday. Kabir stared at him, and for the first time, smiled a little. You're strange, he said. Maybe, Ayan replied, but I'm not weak. The next day, a big surprise. When the players gathered again, the coach announced the top 6 names moving to the final performance stage. One by one, names were called. Kabir's name came. He smiled. Then came the final name. Ayan Khan. Some players clapped. Some looked confused. But no one laughed anymore. Private meeting with the coach. After the names were called, the coach asked to speak with Ayan. He sat across from him and said, Where did you train? Ayan replied, Behind a hill, near a river, with no coach, only my notebook. The coach was silent for a moment. You are not the strongest, he said, but you are the most stable. Then he added something that made Ayan's heart stop for a second. You're not just selected for the finals. You'll be leading the first public demonstration match. A new fear. That night, Ayan sat alone on his bed. He had been strong until now. But this was new. Leading the final match. What if he failed again? What if people laughed? Not just a few, but the whole country watching on national TV. Doubt crept in again. But then he opened his notebook and read the letter he wrote on the wall before leaving. If you win, stay humble. If you lose, stay brave. He closed his eyes and whispered, This time, I won't fall. Even if I do, I will rise before anyone notices. The crowd stood still. Lights were bright. Cameras were ready. Across the stadium, banners waved and flashes blinked. This was the final day. And in the middle of it all, stood Ayan, the same simple boy from a small village. No one knew his full story, not the pain, the failures, the secret training, or the broken moments. But today, everyone would know who he truly was. The final event begins. The announcement echoed through the speakers. Now entering the ground, Ayan Khan, leading the final round. The crowd clapped politely. Some leaned forward curious. The judges whispered to each other. Kabir, now Ayan's friend and biggest supporter, stood at the sideline, silently cheering. Ayan walked to the center of the ground, calm, steady, and focused. He took his position. He looked down at the ground, and then up at the sky. And then the whistle blew. The performance that changed everything. Ayan ran like the wind, not fast, but smooth. Every movement had balance, control, and grace. His jumps were sharp, his landings clean. His body moved like it had memorized every inch of the ground. But what shocked the audience most was his confidence. He didn't look nervous. He looked free. When others might have panicked under pressure, Ayan looked like he belonged there. And in the middle of the routine, he did something unexpected. The unexpected move. In one part of the routine, where most players take a safe jump, Ayan paused. The audience held their breath. Then, he attempted a difficult spin-jump combination that was almost never seen at this level. Even the judges leaned forward. He jumped. He spun. He landed. One foot slipped slightly, but he caught himself and stood tall. The crowd gasped, and then burst into loud applause. Even the cameras zoomed in. The simple boy had just done something extraordinary. After the applause, when he finished, he didn't bow proudly. He simply walked back, humble and quiet. Kabir hugged him tightly. You did it, man. You shocked them all. Ayan smiled. I just did what I trained for. But inside, his heart was racing with emotion. This was more than just a performance. It was a message to every person who had ever been told, "You're not good enough." The final results. All players were called to the stage. Judges came forward with mix in hand. The head judge spoke. "Today, we didn't just see strength. We saw heart, courage, and spirit." He looked directly at Ion. "Some people are born for the sport. Others make the sport change for them." Then he turned the mic toward the crowd. "And the winner of the national title is Ion Khan." The stadium exploded with cheers. Ion stood frozen. It felt like a dream. He walked up slowly and received the medal, his hands shaking, his eyes wet. The interview. After the event, a reporter came to him. "You weren't trained by professionals. You didn't have a coach. How did you do this?" Ion looked into the camera and replied softly, "When no one believed in me, I started believing in myself. When I couldn't find a place to train, I made my own ground. I didn't win because I was better than others. I won because I never stopped trying." Back to the village. A hero's welcome. When Ion returned to his village, the streets were full. Children ran beside his car. Old people smiled from windows. Boys who once laughed at him now clapped with pride. Ion's mother stood at the gate, tears in her eyes, hands open. He stepped out, removed his medal, and placed it around her neck. "This is yours, Ma." She whispered, "No, Beta. This is ours." He didn't stop there. Ion didn't become proud or lost in fame. He did something beautiful. He built a small training ground near the river, the same place he once trained alone. But now it was open for everyone. Kids came there to learn, to train, to grow. He gave them notebooks, shared his lessons, taught them what no coach could teach. One wall of the training center had a sign: "Fall, but don't stop. Cry, but don't quit. If the world laughs, let your actions answer." The final note. Ion became a symbol, not just of talent, but of resilience. He proved that greatness doesn't come from where you start, but from how much you're willing to fight. He didn't just win a medal. He won respect. He won hearts. He changed the rules. Some stories end after a medal. But Ion's story was just beginning. He had won the national title. People knew his name now. Interviews, social media, newspaper headlines, they all wanted to tell the world about the boy who shocked the judges. But Ion didn't let fame touch his heart. He remembered the silence of the river, the dust of his village ground, the tears he cried when nobody was watching. Return to the roots. One morning, Ion returned to the same place where his journey had started, the broken field behind the hill. He stood there alone. The wind was soft. The trees still stood like they did years ago. He smiled and whispered, "Thank you for being my first stadium." He knelt down, picked up a handful of soil, and let it fall through his fingers. It was never the crowd that made him strong. It was the quiet, the struggle, the pain. New purpose. Ion could have joined big clubs. He could have traveled abroad. But he made a different decision. He opened a training center for village kids, free of cost. No rich equipment, no air-conditioned gym, just raw passion, open space, and one promise: no dream is too small. The first students. At first, only 3 kids came. They were shy. One had no shoes. One was scared to jump. One cried on the first day. Ion didn't laugh. He didn't shout. He sat with them, told them his story, and said, "I was worse than all of you, but I never left." More kids came. Then more. Within weeks, there were 50 children training where Ion once trained alone. A message to the nation. One day, a famous TV host invited Ion to speak. The audience clapped loudly. The host asked, "What message do you have for young boys and girls watching you today?" Ion thought for a moment and replied, "Start with what you have. even if it's just an empty field and a dream. You don't need perfect tools. You need unbreakable will. The crowd went silent, and then they clapped louder than ever before. Recognition from the top soon. Ion received a letter from the Ministry of Youth and Sports. He was chosen as the youth ambassador to visit schools, villages, and small towns to inspire young athletes. He traveled across the country. He didn't speak like a celebrity. He spoke like a brother, a friend, a mirror. He said, "If I can do it, so can you. But don't copy me. Create your own way. That's how you become unforgettable." The real medal. One evening, a boy from his village, the same one who once mocked him, came to his center. He stood with tears in his eyes and said, "I was wrong. I wish I had your courage." Ion hugged him and replied, "It's never too late. Start now." That moment, for Ion, was the real medal. Not gold, not silver, but forgiveness, growth, and unity. A letter to his younger self. That night, Ion sat down and wrote a letter in his notebook to the boy he once was. Dear Ion, I know you're tired. I know you want to quit. I know it hurts when they laugh. But don't stop. Don't listen to them. You'll fall. You'll fail. But one day, you'll fly *. And when you do, remember the pain. Remember the dust. And help others rise too. With love, the future you.